A Texas man will be among the first January 6 defendants to face a jury trial over his alleged role in the Capitol attack. Guy Reffitt is due in court later on this month. He's an alleged member of the Three Percenters militia group. He was indicted on several charges, including obstruction of justice and carrying a firearm on Capitol grounds while allegedly taking part in the riot. Scott MacFarlane has been reporting on this case, and he joins us now from Capitol Hill. So, Scott, tell us a little bit more about this case and what challenges will prosecutors face when they're making their case.
This is the first trial out of the gate in a U.S. Capitol attack case, and it's a blockbuster. Guy Reffitt's one of a small number of defendants accused of being here January 6th with a gun on his person. What's more, prosecutors have argued Reffitt threatened his own family not to turn him into the FBI before his arrest. But more than anything, this is the first one. He's set to go to trial February 28th, the last day of the month at 9 a.m. here in Washington. And the prosecutors are carrying a heavy burden here. Everybody's going to be watching this case and how they execute this prosecution. The other trick for prosecutors, not just the eyes of the world being upon them in this moment, is the fact that they have this fire hose of evidence, 23,000 video files collected and perhaps readied for this trial. Otherwise, they have tens of thousands of hours of surveillance video and social media videos. They have 250,000 tips. They have phone devices. They have so much. They have to figure out between now and the start of this trial what to use, how to prepare it, how to organize it and synthesize it, ready it for the defense, and ready it for a jury, a Washington, D.C. jury. Vlad and Anne-Marie, is always worth reinforcing. There are 740 defendants as of today. All of their cases are being funneled through the Washington, D.C. federal courthouse just down the road.
So to that point, Scott, you spoke to former federal prosecutor Scott Frederickson about the importance of this case. I want to play a bit of what he told you for our audience, and then we'll talk about it.
Losing this case right out of the bat will put the department in a very bad light and also make it difficult for them to try future cases. It'll make defendants willing to challenge cases. It'll cause judges to question them. So they can't get it wrong. They can't make a mistake. They can't mess it up. There's going to be intense media scrutiny. It's high profile. There'll be high security. You've got the COVID complications. The government has to get all of that right.
So, Scott, given that this case will set a precedent for perhaps hundreds more to follow, what more can you tell us about how the Justice Department is planning on prosecuting this?
That's right, Vlad. This isn't happening in a vacuum. This trial will begin at a particularly pivotal moment for this, the largest criminal investigation and prosecution in U.S. history. There are a series of high-level defendants, those either accused of assaulting police or of conspiracy, of planning and plotting for January 6th, who are in ongoing plea deal discussions with prosecutors. No doubt they're going to be watching the trial. If somehow the prosecutors take it on the chin, suffer a defeat, either small or large scale, in the trial, perhaps that removes some of the leverage prosecutors have in the plea discussions. And these are plea deals that often yield cooperation with defendants. So not only do prosecutors want to close out some of these cases, they want those defendants to flip and help them with the larger or just with other January 6 cases. So in February, a trial begins in the same month in which many defendants are talking plea deal with prosecutors. An awful lot at stake when this defendant walks into the courthouse February 28th.
So we've been talking about the criminal investigations, but the House committee investigating the Capitol attack is actually employing techniques more common in criminal cases than congressional inquiries. What does that mean?
There's some parallel there, Anne-Marie. That's a heated distinction. There are critics of the January 6th committee who say it's operating too much like a prosecution and not like a congressional committee. But there are parallels that are undeniable. They're working closer and closer, in closer proximity to the inner circle of former President Trump. You can see the progression and the trajectory as they try to get interviews with top Trump aides, with former staffers, then move a little closer, trying to get closer to Vice President Pence, trying to get an interview with the former first daughter, Ivanka Trump. The trajectory is clear. They're moving in a way that's very symmetrical to how prosecutors operate. They start with the lower rungs and move their way up steadily. That's not traditionally how congressional committees function, but that's how this committee is functioning.
So speaking of the committee, Scott, as you know, Senator Marco Rubio was on Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan this Sunday, and you tweeted something that he said to Margaret when he was asked about the January 6th committee, and he called it a partisan exercise. I'm paraphrasing here, but your tweet kind of went viral because you had both Republicans and Democrats adding their 2 cents to your tweet, which was basically just a quote of Senator Rubio. And then on Friday, you had former Vice President Mike Pence calling out his former boss, the former president, saying former President Donald Trump is wrong in claiming he had the right to overturn the 2020 election on January 6th. I want to play a bit of that sound.
That President Trump said I had the right to overturn the election. But President Trump is wrong. I had no right to overturn the election. The presidency belongs to the American people and the American people alone.
So what's fascinating about this, Scott and Anne Marie, as you know, is that, for example, the RNC is calling what happened on January 6th political discourse. And other people are saying, look, I was engaging in a political discussion with my colleague Anne Marie, and I didn't like what she said, so I bear sprayed her and, beat her with a flagpole and said this is political discourse. But now you've got what's important here is that the former vice president is saying that the president, former President Trump, was wrong. You've got Chris Christie, a prominent Republican, saying he was wrong. What should people note about that, Scott?
Well, there are a lot of things that struck me about Senator Rubio's interview and about what Vice President Pence said on Friday. But it's the reaction inside the Republican Party that's most striking. When we posted an excerpt, a quote of what Senator Rubio said, it was other members of Congress, including Republican Adam Kinzinger, cracking back at it when Vice President Pence said what he said Friday. You see, it forms a wedge issue inside the Republican Party because you had Republicans over the weekend drawing this distinction that they'd like to draw between some of the people in the Capitol January 6th who were accused of assault and violence and others who they say were engaged in peaceful protest. That is a provocative distinction because in the court cases, we don't see prosecutors making it. They're saying anybody who was part of that riot, or part of the mob, contributed to a riot. The prosecutors have made no distinction between those who were accused of assaulting and those who were accused of just being part of the mob when they're arguing the mob was dangerous. So when Vice President Pence says what he says on Friday, when senators over the weekend and members of the House over the weekend try to draw a distinction between some in the mob and others, they are in the process forming a wedge issue right down the middle of the Republican Party in a midterm election year and on the eve of the first trial in a January 6th case. It is a striking thing and an important thing.
It's an important distinction that you raised there, Scott, about how the prosecutors are seeing what transpired on that day and not making a distinction. And there are some Republicans, elected officials, who are. And that is the discourse that we're seeing play out on TV when they take to the floor and on social media, as Scott pointed out this weekend. Scott MacFarlane, my friend, thank you very much, as always, for your reporting. Appreciate it.
Thank you.